One of those things that was rejected wholesale was cap and trade, carbon caps, energy taxes, the foisting of very expensive, inefficient technologies onto us. And what did Barack Obama do in his speech last night? He not only doubled down or tripled down, he committed to collapsing the United States economy by making energy so expensive, there's no possible way to afford it. Deneen Borelli from Project 21, she was watching the speech as well, noticed that same number and joins me because Project 21 has been very, very active on debating energy policy in the United States. Deneen, welcome to the show.
Vicki, thanks for having me on.
80% by wind and solar and biofuel, Deneen, by 2035. 80% of our energy being generated by energies that cannot possibly generate 80% by 2035. That's a recipe for lights off.
Well, let's put things in perspective here. Right now, 85% of our energy needs comes from fossil fuels. That's coal, oil, and natural gas. Fossil fuels are plentiful, they're reliable to heat and cool people's homes and to put gasoline in your car and for other transportation methods. Obama is continuing his war against fossil fuels. If you remember back when he was campaigning for president, he said, under my cap and trade plan, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. That makes absolutely no economic or common sense to me, to you, or your listeners. Who in their right mind will want to push for policies that are going to cause energy to go up? You know, our economy is already limping along, and that also means job losses. We're still hovering at 10% unemployment. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
You know, because it doesn't make any sense, period. You've got the two main, winners, and even though Barack Obama said he didn't want the government to pick winners and losers, he promptly did pick the winners. The winners were going to be wind and solar. He was talking about a company making solar shingles. Oh, I'm telling you what, it was when I realized that was our Sputnik moment. Solar shingles. What if the sun doesn't shine? What if the wind doesn't blow? And you've got these incredibly high energy prices. I mean, there's a bunch of things it does. It dooms people who are trying to climb up the ladder of success. It takes people who are midway up that ladder and drops them down to the bottom. And it absolutely hammers the ability of the middle class to generate any wealth for itself. And you've got to wonder, Deneen, is that the point?
Well, as I said, Obama has a war against fossil fuels, and it's very unfortunate for our country. And I'm sure a lot of Americans are understanding and waking up to this fact that Obama has a problem with fossil fuels.
I think he's got a problem with prosperity.
That's true. And individualism, because he wants T-ball for all. There would be all winners and no losers with his policies. But another thing to keep in mind is his pick for his presidential council on jobs and competitiveness, Jeff Immelt. He's the CEO of General Electric. Now, they produce windmills and solar panels. So clearly, these two are colluding because Immelt needs government backing to prop up the General Electric company.
Well, and it is interesting as well that there was tens of millions of dollars in campaign donations that went to Democrat candidates, and very specifically Barack Obama. Immelt, who is co-founded the Climate Action Partnership, General Electric, along with British Petroleum, now BP. They are all standing to benefit from those big contracts in China to purchase the windmills, to purchase the solar panels. This guy was supposedly talking about jobs for Americans. It sounds like he's very interested in employing Chinese.
Well, here, what I want to reference to you and your listeners, please visit bigbusinesswatch.org, because what the National Center for Public Policy Research and Freedom Work has done is created an online ad that outlines everything that is wrong about Jeff Immelt and his failed leadership at General Electric and his inability to be anything near one of President Obama's councils. BigBusinessWatch.org. Watch the ad. There is a petition that is urging Jeff Immelt to resign as CEO from General Electric because his appointment is wrong on many levels. Financially, GE borrowed billions of dollars from the Federal Reserve. Morally, they were recently selling, up until a couple of years, infrastructure equipment to Iran. A lot of people don't realize that. So I really urge you to look at the ad and sign the petition.
Yeah, and I think once you start realizing who the players in the game are, you'll start realizing that the renewable energy lobbyists, this is a quite a corrupt bunch of bozos out there. And whenever you hear things like what the president said, I mean, that should have sent off red flags for everyone. But we've got a bunch of shallow thinking folks who say, oh, neato, 80% of all of our energy will be green by the year 2035. Isn't that nifty? The moment you start just peeling back one layer of that onion, you realize that, one, it can't work, but two, it is only extracting money from the prosperity of the private sector to line the pockets of a very small contingent of big cronies. When it was the Republicans doing it, the news media was down their throat with a microscope. When it's the Democrats, mum's the word.
Well, yeah, it's central planning. You have government mandates that are controlling what we, the people, the consumer, can purchase or use for our personal use and for our families. I mean, look at how they're pushing the electric car, for example. First of all, an electric car, I mean, you need gasoline to drive for miles and miles. We have no idea how much time it's going to take, first of all, to charge your battery, but not only that, they don't know what the outcome is going to be once people start driving these cars. I think they're more expensive. You can buy a regular average car at less price. And not only that, the American people don't want it. But this is a do as I say, not as I do mentality. I'd like to see how many of these individuals who are pushing these policies are going to be buying those products.
No, it's about policy that is meant, and you said the phrase central planning. This is a control mechanism. It is to deny cheap, abundant sources of electricity to the lower income folks, middle income folks, working class folks. It is essentially decoupling the middle class from their ability to create wealth. And if the middle class cannot create wealth, then the idea is the middle class cannot stop the ruling classes from doing whatever it is they want. The reason the middle class is a threat is because the middle class owns property, it is able to create wealth for itself, and it is able to mobilize itself. You take away that ability and you turn everybody into serfs, you have a very easy pathway for the ruling class to do whatever it is they want. And that's how I see it. This is a war on prosperity. And it begins with energy, because without energy, without cheap, abundant sources of energy, easy access to mobility, easy access to transportation that is inexpensive, what do? How do you work? How do you create wealth for yourself? How do you afford a home? How do you save for your kids' college education? How do you pay for your health care? How do you do any of that stuff if everything's so expensive you can't even afford to wake up in the morning and turn on the lights?
You're absolutely right. And with higher energy costs, that means less disposable income for households to spend on everyday basic needs and to educate their kids and feed their families. We need reliable, affordable energy. And right now, that is coming from fossil fuels. And if you look at the renewable energy products, it's wind and solar that they're pushing, as we said before we went on air, as you said, the sun must shine and the wind must blow. And that is something that I have said in numerous speeches that I have given across the country in Tea Party events. So, clearly, Americans need to realize and recognize the central planning coming from our government is not in the best interest of our country.
Yeah, I agree. And you can't solve it simply by saying, oh, don't worry about it. We'll have a government program there to pay your electric bill. Or we'll have a government program there to put you on a high-speed rail or something. We are already $13.9 trillion in debt that is only expected to grow. There's no way to keep doing these programs the government will dream up. And Barack Obama also mentioned 98% of people getting cheap access to high-speed internet. The only way that happens is because the government pays for it. We're going to pay for every child to go to college with a $10,000 credit. We have already expanded the vast amount of money that we are, quote, investing in all manners of things that used to be controlled by the private sector. At some point, we're tapped out. And I think that is the point. I really do. If it's not, that's the end result, and I guess it doesn't matter what the intention is.
Well, you're absolutely right. And another thing to recognize is that right now there's over 40 million Americans on food stamps. There are Americans already lining up for assistance for their utility bills in Atlanta, in Georgia, in
Milwaukee,
Detroit.
Madison. We got them here, too.
Absolutely. And this is now, before they implement these policies that they're trying to force down our throats. This is happening now.
Now, the name of the website again is, I forgot to jot it down. It is bigbusinesswatch.org. Did I remember that correctly?
Bigbusinesswatch.org. That's absolutely correct.
Deneen Borelli, Project 21, a wonderful organization. One of the groups of warriors out there, have been very, very active in the Tea Party movement to get this information out there. Thank you, Deneen Borelli.
Vicki, thank you.
All right.